Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden, and today on Global Book Network, we enter the weird and wonderful world where science fiction meets fantasy. And our guide is Patricia Punch Barrett, who has written the Panterra Chronicles. It's the adventure of the Panterra SuperTramps, who, if the cover is any indication, bear a strong resemblance to Tom Cruise and Friends and a whole bunch of koala bears. The cover alone will make you want to dig right in. So let's do that. Patricia, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Now, before we get into the book, let's talk a little bit about you. You
Mhm.
are in Henderson, Nevada, now on the outskirts of
Right.
Las Vegas, but you have been a globetrotter most of your life. Take us through that journey a little bit from your early days in San Diego to Australia and Anchorage and all around the world.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I actually was born in San Diego. My father was in the military, and we lived all over the United States and in addition, Guam, until I got to be about 6 years old. And then we moved to Spokane, Washington, and back to San Diego, where I grew up. So I went to college at the United States International University and trained to be a teacher. I had a diversified major, fine arts, with theater and teaching and music. And so when I graduated, there was a glut of teachers. I couldn't get a job in San Diego or Southern California, so I put in an application for Australia. So I was selected for that, and I was pretty excited because I'd always been interested in Australia. So I flew over with a bunch of other teachers, and 3 weeks after we got there, we had a holiday because the seasons are reversed and their summer is our winter. So there was a 3 week holiday. And one of my American friends and I went up to the Gold Coast. We bought a used Volkswagen to make the trip. And about 60 miles outside of Melbourne, where I was stationed, the car broke down on a Sunday. And at that time, everything shuts down on Saturday and especially Sunday. So there was no chance we were going to get a mechanic, but we saw a farmhouse in the distance. So we hiked to the farmhouse and explained our situation. It was providential. They invited us right in. They lined up a mechanic for us for the next day and invited us to stay the night. And the way their house was arranged, half of the house was for human habitat, and the other half were for farm animals. So it was utterly amazing and delightful. And in the morning, the woman made us a farm breakfast and wanted to take us outside and show us something special. So we walked outside, and in a tree next to the house were a whole bunch of koalas in their natural habitat.
Mhm.
We were just enchanted, so delighted and thrilled to see this. And so then we were on our way and we continued on up to the Gold Coast. And we were almost there. And we knew that we had to buy our wine for dinner before 6 o'clock. And we had a reservation at a Michelin star restaurant out in the middle of
Huh.
nowhere, but you had to bring your own wine. So we went into the shop, and the lady detected that we were Americans right away. And she said, "Oh, I have something special to show you." And she pulled out a shoebox with a baby koala in it. And
Oh,
we were
man.
that reinforced and certified my passion for these adorable animals. And so we just felt like this was so thrilling and exciting to see yet again another koala. It wasn't exactly their natural habitat in a shoebox, but
Yeah,
obviously
shoebox.
it had been orphaned, probably picked up off of the ground before a dingo got to it and was cared for. So then we went on the rest of our trek and everything. But this was the inception of my love for koalas. And then um, So after about a year and a half, I went back to the United States. I headed for Alaska because I had a romantic interest, and so that didn't last too long. But I found a job in Alaska, and I just loved our school and our staff, the students, and I was very happy in Alaska. And it's kind of interesting because at the time, there were glaciers that would come fairly close down to Anchorage. And yet each year you could see the glaciers receding. And one of my friends would take an annual photo of her family on top of Flat Top. This is a mountain that it has a hiking trail up the mountainside. So you could see this glacier receding every
Oh,
year.
yeah, sure.
So yeah, and it was it, it was very noticeable, and it made me think of this article that I had read in Newsweek magazine when I was still in San Diego about global warming. And I thought, wow, you can see this happening. And so, I kind of filed it away, and um, eventually, after my teaching career in Alaska, I took early retirement so that I could move back to San Diego and assist my aging parents. So, so that's what I did. And we had a family on the corner. This is where I got a couple of the characters' names, Khadija and Joseph, but he goes by Joseph now. And so I went on their trips to the zoo and things like this. And at one point, Joseph had to do a report about leopards. And I found out a lot of things that the zoos do that I was unaware of. And the research, breeding programs, corridors for animals to continue to thrive and reproduce. And it was really interesting. So when I finished with San Diego, I wanted to move to another place, and my cousin had a, a home in Henderson, like a snowbird home,
Uh-huh.
and he encouraged me to try Henderson, so I did. And so I was very happy and excited about the community. And then once I got here, there was an article in the Las Vegas Review Journal about koalas. I mean, here in Las Vegas, and about this dreaded retrovirus. I read that, and all of the puzzle pieces started coalescing. And I thought, I'd like to write a story about koalas. And perhaps they came to Las Vegas and Henderson as part of a protection program because uh, the koalas were infected with this retrovirus, really just about the entire population on the continent of Australia and the islands offshore. But I created koalas that were mutant by virtue of not having this virus. And so, anyway, the story progresses from there. There's a bit of sci-fi and robotics because we had robotics competitions and drone competitions here in Las Vegas. Well, this sounds like a fun story to me.
Well,
And go ahead,
Well, it sounds like that naturally somebody who had that relationship with koalas and stuff, you would write a story about animals and it would be, out in the country and so on, but you've injected something completely different, like with quantum mechanics, space travel, paranormal activities. How in the world did you figure that into the equation?
Uh, it's still a mystery to me. I do recall that when Khadija graduated, I gave her a book about quantum mechanics and uh, Nikola Tesla and things like that. So I kind of scanned the book first, but I've always been interested in science. And I think it comes from a teacher that I had early on for economics. And you had to read. Newsweek or Time Magazine, take your pick, and you get quizzed on it every week so that you know influences, global influences. And it kind of stuck with me. I've always been interested in what's going on out in the larger world, not limited to just local news. So I've always been exposed to and receptive to learning about things like this. I am by no means a physicist, but I've had a little fun with it. And what's ironic is that what started out as kind of a, a waking, nodding interest with these concepts, it's mainstream now. I
Mhm.
mean, AI is everywhere. Quantum mechanics, this is what they're using to for turbo powered computing,
Mhm.
which is essential if they are going to explore space. And so again, I don't quite get it. I don't grasp this, but I'm aware of it.
Mhm.
And so I put some of these elements into my story. The real physicists are probably laughing.
Ah,
And
heck with them.
fine. It's
That's okay.
fiction, you know.
But with all these things coming up now, you've got more ideas. Do you see a sequel to this?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I've already finished the manuscript, and it sort of goes more toward the interior of the Earth, below the surface crust,
Mhm.
and into realms that are closer to the Earth's mantle. In fact, very recently I was reading an article about how I get these articles off of Nautilus. And so this article was about obtaining a core sample from the Earth's mantle. And they go out to the mid-Atlantic ridge where there's seamounts and stuff, and they drill down. They succeeded in doing this because there's such strong currents that the equipment breaks apart, you know. So they got a core sample and they discovered a bunch of things that they did not anticipate about the percolation of minerals and stuff that come to the surface. And so, at, just this last week, I was reading an article about this actor, Jason Momoa, and he's interested in uh, conserving the oceans and everything. But there was an article in Nautilus about hydrothermal vents, and they've actually gone down 13,000 feet with roving vehicles. And then they have the video feed goes to land and everything. And they've discovered these hydrothermal vents. And this is like right where the tectonic plates clash. And so there are seepages, like, you know, where the magma comes up. And so then these vents build up, and there's like vent fields, and there's like maybe towers 30 feet high, and there's plumes of smoke that come out of there and go to the surface. So you go from like boiling magma into the freezing water in the depths of the ocean. But the amazing thing is that there is life at these depths,
Mhm.
and they have microbes. There's microbial fields around these hydrothermal vents, and they affix things like methane gas, sulfur, hydrogen, and all of these minerals and things come out of these hydrothermal vents. And bacteria loves this stuff. And then you have these daredevil shrimp, and they risk getting scorched and going blind to get in there and get some of these nutrients. And then, of course, it goes up the food chain. It's really amazing. And there's other fish and things they've never seen. It's an amazing world.
Well,
And
some of it already exists, these really strange creatures, but now you can even create your own. Because once
Oh,
you're
yeah,
creating your own world, anything is possible. So you can come up,
you're
you can
right.
use those real creatures as basis for new ones, and you go from outer space to inner space.
Yes,
So it
yes.
sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. Really,
Oh, yes.
what
And
would you compare? We just got a very short amount of time left, but what would you
okay,
compare the Panterra Chronicles to? What kind of story can people expect when they read that? Is it a Star
well,
Wars type thing? Is it a, Lord of the Rings type thing? What is it? What kind of genre
uh,
fall in?
well, it is a circus family, and they migrate from Australia to, just guess what? Southern Nevada. And they're involved in the entertainment community and hospitality. They're into shows and everything.
Hmm.
And and then they have these younger people that are dedicated to caring for wildlife, finding wildlife whose habitat has been destroyed. And they're very humanitarian and oriented toward the environment and taking care of ecosystems there. And they work together and they have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that kind of teamwork and family seems to be a theme
Mhm.
running through this, and all the things that are happening there. We can now say that what happens in Vegas doesn't necessarily stay in Vegas, or
You're
and
absolutely right.
so we're looking forward to that next sequel, for that sequel to come out. And Patricia, thanks again so much for joining us. And folks, if you're in for a thrilling world of science fiction and fantasy, check out the Panterra Chronicles, available on Amazon in paperback, hardback, and audiobook.
Thank you so much, Paul Ryland. And I've really enjoyed our time together. And people can also Google the Panterra Chronicles and find it in a bunch of bookstores online.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
thank you.
Well, you bet. Thank you, Patricia. And thank you for tuning in and supporting authors like Patricia. I'm Paul Ryden. Have a great rest of the day.